So hey guys, welcome back. Now let's talk about practical upgrades for your keyboard. These upgrades are very useful for your keyboard, especially when you are constantly in your computer and always use your keyboard for work or for gaming. So this upgrade is perfect for those people who are working from home and once again heavily rely on typing and using their keyboards. Maybe you are an encoder, transcriber, or maybe a programmer. So these upgrades are perfect for you. I would like to reiterate once again that this is all about practicability and usefulness. So there are no fancy artisan keycaps here. So if you are a fan of artisan keycaps, I'm sorry, but for me it is not a practical upgrade for your keyboard. So of course there are factors that affected this list. I think one of those factors would be practicality. Another one is comfort. The next one is ergonomics, and of course durability. So overall these upgrades are once again very useful, and this is a basic upgrade. So if you are a beginner, these upgrades are good for you. So this would improve the overall feel and the overall durability of your keyboard. So the first one are the key switches. First things first, are you contented with your keyboard switch? Do they feel good? Are you comfortable with them? If not, then maybe it's time to upgrade or replace them. So there are two ways to upgrade your key switches. First is to lube them, or if you don't want to lube them, then buy a different switch. I will be explaining how to lube in my other videos. I'll leave a link in the description below. So do you own a tactile switch such as Gateron Brown, Cherry Browns, but you want them to be more silent? I suggest go buy a Boba Silent Tactile or Roselios, or maybe the Xylants, or maybe go for an Otimu Silent Forest. But if you are on a tight budget, then go for an Otimu Silent Grace. I will be making a video about the Otimu Silent Grace, and I will be modding it, and we will see if it is indeed a good silent tactiles. So there are tons of upgrade options for your switches, and the main challenge here is identifying which one is the best for you. You may check some YouTube videos such as this, but if you really want to know the feel of it, or if you really want to know the feel of it physically, or if you want to feel it by yourself, if you don't want to base on YouTube videos, then I suggest go buy or go purchase small amounts of those key switches that you are interested in. But be warned though, buying in bulk is cheaper than buying in small quantity. So there are some sellers who give discount if you buy around 90 pieces or 60 pieces or even 110 pieces. They would sell it in a cheaper price, but if you will buy 5 pieces or 10 pieces, it would be more expensive. So upgrading your key switches or modding your key switches greatly affects the comfort of it, since you could choose the sound of the key switches that you wanted. Maybe you want it loud, maybe you want it silent, or maybe you want it to sound more talky, because most keyboard enthusiasts go for talkier sound on their keyboard. So there are tons of ways to get the comfort and the sound you want with your switches. You could replace the housing, you could replace the stems of the key switches, and you could also replace or upgrade the spring of your key switches. Now the second upgrade is keycaps. So keycaps is the next practical upgrade, since all keycap profile are not the same. There are tons of keycaps to choose from. The most common is the OEM profile, which is very ergonomic and comfortable. especially when you are typing for a long time. It has angles that support your fingers when you type, and it helps you identify which key rows you are pressing. So those angles will help you identify the keypad or the keys caps that you are pressing. So cherry profiles are considered to be the best keycaps for typing, but I believe that keycaps are subjective to the user. Cherries and OEMs are just proven to be more ergonomic due to their keycap angles. So there are studies, or there are some studies. So there are some websites that explain why it is more comfortable in the long run. So I just suggest that you search for it, or maybe I'll just leave a link down below. So keycaps are all about comfort and ergonomics. Maybe you prefer the feel of a laptop keyboard, then I suggest you buy a chiclet keycap. I also made a video about chiclet keycaps, or you could also buy a DSA keycaps or even an XDA keycaps. Now the next practical upgrade are the keyboard stabilizers. So stabilizers are the next upgrade you should do. There are stabilizers that are expensive and some that are very affordable. So it depends on where you buy. If you will buy the GMMK stabilizers, then definitely those are very expensive. But I suggest you just buy a cheaper variant or a cheaper brand. So upgrading your stabilizers could help improve the feel of the switch, especially the backspace, the spacebar, the enter, the shift keys. So they do help improve the feel of the keycaps or of the key switches, especially when you are pressing on the spacebar. So when your spacebar or when your backspace sound like rattling, then I suggest you upgrade or you lube the stabilizers. So just buy an affordable one. You don't really need to purchase a stabilizer worth $20. There are some worth $5 or $10. You just need to lube it properly, and that's already a good upgrade. But if you don't want to buy a good stabilizer, then just lube them properly. I'll also be leaving a video on how to lube your stabilizers properly. So it is very important to lube your stabilizers or purchase a new one. Now the next upgrade is the foam or the foam dampeners. So the foam dampeners are inserted in between the PCB and the steel plate. So foam dampeners are practical upgrades since it helps with reducing the noise your keyboard makes. It dampens any sound your noisy switch makes and helps it achieve a more talkier sound. So this is subjective to some people since some people prefer the noise their keyboard makes, and honestly I respect that. I just prefer putting foam dampeners to reduce the rattling sound the keyboard makes, since I am more fond of silent switches, or I am more fond of silent keyboards since I don't really like to disturb other people when I'm working. Now the last upgrade, the fifth upgrade, is the aluminum plates or aluminum case. So this would be the last practical upgrade for your keyboard since it is quite expensive to buy. I recommend that you don't go for brass case or brass plates since they are prone to rust. And they must be cleaned time to time. So I'd rather go for aluminum case or aluminum plates since it requires less maintenance and it is less prone to rust. So upgrading your plates and case would definitely make your keyboard more durable, and it also adds to the aesthetic of it. But it will add to the weight of the keyboard, especially since the material you'll be using is more heavier. So those are the top 5 practical upgrades. Some people do suggest to purchase coiled cables. To me, I honestly don't recommend that, especially when you are going for compact and easy to carry keyboards. I mean, your keyboard has a Bluetooth capability, so I don't see why you need coiled cables. They are expensive and they are just for aesthetic purposes really. The only time I use wired cables is when I am charging my keyboard. So uh, I suggest not to buy coiled cables, but if you have the money for it, then go buying coiled cables. I just think that using the money to buy coiled cables could be bought for buying other key switches, or even changing your keycaps, or maybe even buying lube for your switches, or buying lube for your stabilizers. Because honestly, coiled cables are very expensive, and if you really wanted coiled cables, it is suggested that you just do it yourself. There are a lot of YouTube videos on how to make a coiled cable by yourself, so I suggest watching those instead and save the money for other upgrades. So that's it for my recommendation on the practical upgrades. These are probably the most useful upgrades to improve your keyboard, and I think the most practical. The aluminum case and the aluminum plate would be the most expensive in all of this, and maybe the key switches, because there are some key switches that are very expensive, and maybe some keycap profiles are also expensive. But I'm sure that there are some keycap profiles that are quite cheap, so it is better to go for the cheaper keycap profiles. So that's it. Leave a like and subscribe to my channel to help me out. Watch out for more videos like this, and once again, stay safe.